That was right.
Hello, nice to meet you, Howdy, and hello to all our audience. I am very happy to present you and to have you here for this interview. You are author, philosopher, you wrote some books about our situation in the Matrix and about the reincarnation trap. Became famous your book, Exit the Cave. I spoke about this in a video, and I am very happy that you are here.
Yeah, thanks. And I thought this is an opportunity. I've done a lot of interviews, of course, for the English speaking language people. So it's nice to try to do something where we can start meeting people from different parts of the world because everybody has these questions, everybody has these concerns, and this is a great way to start. So thanks for having me.
It is very singular that in the past 10 years, a lot of people started to think and to see the reality in a way that we are presenting. You think this is a coincidence or some circumstances became mature somehow in the humankind?
Yeah, I would say it's a few things. Like these subjects have been in the history of human thought and philosophy for thousands of years. They're there. You just have to know how to look for them. And they were around 20, 30 years ago, but just a few people, only one or two here and there. Like you say, in the last 10 years especially, and I think it's been the reasons for it would be one, the world has been getting crazier.
Yeah.
So as the reality gets more insane, it affects more and more people than it say did 30 or 40 years ago, and they start wondering, why is it so crazy? So that would be one. Two would be the explosion of the computer, the internet, this kind of technology, and the idea of a simulation through movies that came out particularly 25 years ago, right? Dark City,
Mhm.
The Matrix, The
Yes.
Truman Show, Donnie Darko. So that was beginning to get in people's minds around that time. And now there was a more, not that this is a computer generated simulation, it's just a good metaphor to try and explain what our reality is. I think it's allowed more people to have a language to talk about the reality rather than say 100 years ago or 200 years ago when they only said, well, it's a dream. That's the best they had for the description.
Or an illusion.
Sorry?
They were saying this is a dream or an illusion.
Right.
And today the science is saying that we really live in a holographic circumstance.
Right. So as there's more, and it's not that we today are any smarter or more intelligent than people 200 or 500 years ago. I had the fortune of spending a lot of time with a Korean monk and with several native medicine men who still live in the traditional way of thousands of years. Very intelligent people, even though they're not versed in technology. But um, with this thing that we're using right now, it's giving the average person something more that they can describe rather than just it's a dream. Now they can say, well, it's a reality, but it's not a real reality. And that can get people talking. That can get the discussion started.
There is a part very super interesting in your previous book about the love and what love really is in this reality. I had a collaboration with Evelorgen, we studied the subject of the dark Cupid, the interference of the relationships. You said that love in this reality is like a code which is trapping the people, every one of us, because it's like giving us some kind of feelings, some kind of excitement, which is leading us out of the true path, or something like this. Are you still thinking this about love? Because I quoted this, what you said, what you thought, and I really believe that you are right in this.
Yeah, again, for anybody who's not, and I would assume, because people have probably seen your previous discussion of my other books, so probably people have an idea of my basic principle, right? But I think the way a Cathar would think, or a Gnostic would think, which is not that this is a place of love and joy and or a place of learning or a school where we're going to advance, that it's this reality is not real, a projected holographic realm that is built to distract, distort, and create suffering. That's all this place is. Okay, so if that becomes, and that's years. That's not like I just came up with this like 6 months ago. This is 30 years of work and experience to finally have to start. And I hated to make that acknowledgement finally. For years, I was hoping this would be different. This could be better. This was I was hoping. And eventually I just finally had to say, no, it's not that. This is what it is. Okay. Because once you may come to that conclusion, now you can step back to everything in the reality and what's presented. A good example is love, right? Love is presented like the greatest thing you should be doing in this realm, and nobody steps back and because it feels good, right? It feels wonderful when and particularly when people use the word love, they mean it often in a romantic
Of
term,
course.
right? I have love for this other person. But you can have love for a dog, you can have love for a job, you can have love for a place that you live. It's just really it's an extreme feeling of like. But when it comes to another person, it takes on this believed speciality as if this is like a pinnacle of what we're supposed to achieve. But if this is a realm of suffering, and the realm of suffering works in a reincarnation cycle, meaning it continues to need bodies to be built here in order for souls, our real us, to keep coming in and being a part of it, then it would make sense that one of the number one things it needs is more babies. And the way you have more babies is to have more of this intense feeling between two people. So they will come together, have sex, and like each other enough to raise the child. Because it's not enough just to have a baby, right? If you just have the baby and it dies in a year, that's no good either. So you not only have to get a couple to come together, you have to get the child, and then you have to get it to raise to be old enough then that it can have sex, it can have its own babies, and it can keep the cycle going. And love is mostly what we know it as is this force designed to keep the system running. Now, there's something else completely, like, I mentioned in my books, which this is a mirror of, but almost nobody touches the real thing. They are locked into this idea, and it sells billions and billions of books a year.
When you explain this to people, then they start to understand this. New Agers, not, but most of people, which some understand when they understand this, but then they start to talk about unconditional love. You believe that the unconditional love is an experience that you can have in this realm? Is true, this unconditional love, or is another illusion?
Yeah. Again, usually anyone who says that never does it, right? True unconditional love means everyone and everything can do whatever they want, anytime, the way they want to do it. There's no restrictions on anything. So go to some like go to somebody's house who preaches unconditional love and throw a bunch of garbage at their house, for example. That wonderful love feeling is going to go away and they're going to start screaming at you and calling the police. And so unconditional love can only occur when this thing comes to the realization that it's not really here. That not only is this an illusion, but this here is an illusion. Once you come to realize that The truth of what you are is something non-physical, has nothing to do with this reality at all. Zero. What will happen, in my eyes, is not unconditional love. It'll be different. I call it, I use the word empathy. There will be a tremendous connection with everything then, out of the realization that everyone else is in this distortion, everyone else is in this insanity, and everything else, be it animals, trees, birds, rocks, everything is all a part of this distortion. So, like for example, I wouldn't say I have unconditional love for the world, but I have an unconditional empathy for everyone that's here and is in, and I know that they're going through, have gone through, will go through some form of suffering, and I'm not trying to fix it, I'm not trying to change it, but I can meet them, everyone, on this realization of we all know now what trauma is, we know what pain is, and that's where we connect. We connect through the pain and the realization of you're not more special than me and I'm not more special than you. We both suffer here.
You believe that all these kind of observations and how to say this knowledge, it's disturbing, can be disturbing to the people because there is a quote in your book: a calm and stable mind is required to come to material such as this.
Um, One of the people I never got to meet him in person. He died before I found out about him. Was a man named Richard Rose, who was a teacher in the East Coast of the United States. And he was one of the most clear, level-headed, grounded presenters of this material I've ever come across, which is why I gravitate to him so much. Very much like the Korean monk that I was with. He
Uh-huh,
used
uh-huh,
to, yeah, he used to present things to us like, no bullshit, I'm telling you how it really is.
uh-huh.
And for Rose, he was very clear that for people to go to really deep philosophical discussions like we're talking about, which include emptiness and the void and, simulations, and that if you don't have what he called your house in order, what that means is that your physical being, even though it may be or may not be real, right? This is everything I'm saying is a it's a question for the people listening to not believe me, but take it as a question to ask, just curiosity. But he said you need to have this in order. You need to have this functioning comfortably here so that you're not full of anxiety, full of stress, full of pain and suffering that, or say, let's say full of disease, is try to get the body as healthy as common possible and try to get the mind as calm and healthy as possible because an unstable or challenged mind, when it comes to deep subjects, will rebel.
Yeah,
It will just be too scared of it. So it will just, and it can drop into dangerous places. But if that mind has first said, "Hey, I need to get myself clear, stable, get my traumas in my life sorted out, get myself balanced," now you could go to this material, and that egoic mind will be comfortable and safe enough to let you explore that material. So for him, that was a really important step. So a lot of things that were being done for the people that came to him seemed very simplistic. Getting, making sure just basic life is looked after. But once they then got to the deeper stuff, they understood why they had to be in that stable place before they could go deeper.
when I started to talk about those subjects, about the reincarnation trap, the archons, and all this situation, many people got really, really scared, devastated, because they were believing, okay, in the reincarnation, but this is something good, something made by the divine, that you are helped there by these guides, these angels. And then saying to them that it's not really like this, many of them almost lost their mind. But then they started to understand, and I think that it has been possible to build real state of highest consciousness than before. But still, there are people, a lot of people, which is impossible to make them understand, and they are involved. They are not like these common people, these normies. They are involved in the spiritual stuff, in the esotericism, but for them there is no chance that this is a trap or something like this. For them, it is still a divine realm, guided by love, in which you have to ascend, in which you have to vibrate high, and stuff like that. Why do you think that for these people is so difficult to understand that is a little bit different than what they are convinced?
Some say, of course, that I present a depressing presentation. That, oh, you have a you're very pessimistic in your outlook.
Ah,
And I consider it, no, I'm realistic. I'm looking at the reality as it presents itself on a day-to-day basis and makes objective assessments based on that reality experience, not just for me, but for as global an examination as possible. And no one is going to come to this kind of material who's had a really great life. Some people actually have. There are a few, amazingly,
yeah,
right? They
yeah.
had good parents, they actually liked them, they were comfortable, they had doors open, they had jobs, it's like things just went smooth. But a massive amount of the world's population has not had that opportunity. They've suffered tremendous trauma and tremendous abuse and tremendous just emotional pain and problems and suffering and injuries. And for me, this begins this begins to start to happen for somebody either who A has gone through a really traumatic life of themselves, and this, oh, God is just testing you, God is just teaching
Uh-huh.
you, um, which is the dumbest way to teach anyone possible. I mean, if I want to have a student learn, I don't hit them with a stick repeatedly over the head. You show them some kindness and you encourage them and they actually learn. Or it's a person who maybe they haven't really had a ton of trauma themselves, but that trauma has been with their brothers, with their sisters, with their parents, with their friends. They have seen that one way or another, a whole lot of people, themselves or others, have gone through a ton of pain and suffering. And logically, when they think about it, when you think about the answers that are normally given through spirituality and religion of why there's so much pain and suffering here, logically they start to say, that doesn't make any sense. The only thing that starts to make sense is, hey, this place was created to do just that. It's actually, the reality is, we see it as insane. We see the real, and it's insane. But
It's insane.
we think it's supposed to be sane, so we need to fix it. The big change for me was when I realized it was built to be insane. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Oh, I can start doing something else. I can focus on my own personal sanity, and I don't have to worry what the world does. I just have to worry about this thing. It was a huge, huge change. Huge
Yes, because most of people still believe that it's possible to make it better.
change. Right.
But I agree with you.
And
This
that's
was
one of the big
designed
traps.
to.
That's one of the big traps.
Uh,
If all of someone's energy is going to fix, it's like if you have a video game that's built to be about truck driving, and you decide, I don't want a video game about truck driving, I want to make it into a golf game, you can't, it's built to be a truck driving game. That's what it is. And that's one of the issues. We have this reality, and this belief has been like put into everybody of what it's supposed to be, but it's never ever like that. It's never been like that. It's probably never ever going to be like that. So, how much time do you have to spend trying to make the one video game about something else until you realize, hey, that's not what the game's supposed to be about. Either
yeah.
I choose to play the game or I don't. That is the huge step back. Because then we can say, okay, if I don't want to play this game, what can I do? What are my options? Yeah.
Yeah, you wrote something really smart when you say this reality has been written like this to be insane, and nothing never changed it. All the prayers, all the
Yeah.
all the attention, all what the people did to make this better never worked. So we have to assume
Right.
that this reality is like this, and this is for a reason. But for which reason this reality exists and who built it? You have an idea about that?
Yeah, again, like everything, it's a thesis. So I would never say it's true, and I would never say everyone should believe it because I wrote some books and I said it. But I've come to say that the way that um, early Gnostics, groups that were, we'll call them, they're not really Christian, they're kind of
Yeah.
Christian-like, but that's the best way to describe them, right? Cathars, and even in the earliest ancient Egyptian funerary texts have a basic principle that this was not created as by a wonderful, loving God to create some sort of paradise. They present this reality as created by not necessarily an evil force at the beginning, but a force that was in error. That's the word they like to
Ignorant
use.
force.
Yeah, they were creating this creator was creating in error without the proper combined forces of the totality. It kind of created on its own. In Gnostic terms, that would be Yaldabaoth. In Christian term, or in Cathar terms, as Rex Mundi. Sometimes it's often called the Demiurge. But this force then create because it couldn't create because it's creating an error, so it can't create the way we know of creation. It has to make a copy. So it copies something else, something more true, and in a sense projects this copied image, which is going to be false. It's going to be not acting properly. And if I finally answer your question, the real reason for the creation was combination of creating and not having it to stop. So once creation was made, the only purpose of creation is to keep getting enough energy. If you consider the creation to be like a giant computer, the computer just needs enough power to keep itself on so it doesn't shut off. That's what this place is. A giant energy wheel designed to make sure that this thing doesn't stop. And it only continues because some things that were outside of this created force, Gnostics called them divine sparks, there's many
Yeah.
names for this, were either brought in, tricked in, tempted in, one way or another, to be the power source for this system. And as long as divine sparked humans are here feeding the system can continue. If each divine spark, as they leave and return home outside of this reality, the system gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and so has to become harder and harder and harder to try to keep
Yeah.
the chains on everything that's here.
So harvesting the lush, this machine is the lush of the divine sparks. This system is maintaining his life. You mean?
Right.
There is in Italy, this great researcher, Corrado Malanga, I think you know him.
Mm.
He believes that we made as consciousness the beginning of this game to,
Mm.
to, to explore, to experience the duality and integrate ourselves back. And
Um,
you believe that this
well,
is possible to
no.
conciliate with the Gnostic?
Yeah. Again, it's challenging because even to start to see how this is built, it's very hard then to even try to explain it to someone who's not having the same, so two people can kind of say kind of opposite like things, but they can be seeing the same thing. It's just they're explaining it very differently. But to me, I see it as this, I don't see it as divine sparks, plural, many coming into this reality. I see it as just one divine force, of one fire, one giant celestial fire enters in here. And then what this creator, this demiurge, whatever you want to call it, does very smartly is break the fire into multiple sparks. So we had one fire, now we have multiple sparks. And
Uh-huh.
those sparks still have the power. They've now got some individualized consciousness that will start to be attached to the bodies, the various bodies that get added into the creation. But all they're really, see, this is a, should maybe I'll say this now for everybody because it's a good time to say it. I've always felt that there's one big error that the New Age community, the spiritual community makes, and that's the idea of oneness. They talk about everything is one, right? Meaning me, the table, the chair, the book, the cloud, we're all just one.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, here's the problem.
Mhm.
There are actually two ones. There is the oneness of that celestial fire that entered into the matrix, which eventually was shattered into the divine spark. So all divine sparks, right? The divine power of an object, that's only one, right? That's the divine, that's the fire. All the material things, though, all the material things, they were all built in the matrix by the demiurge. So this cup, this shirt, these glasses, this body, that actually is one, right? So if I say we are all one, that's true. But that doesn't include what we truly are,
Yeah,
these divine. And there's the trick. The trick
correct.
being is getting people to believe that what they are is also the same as all the objects in the matrix. And so what happens is the attention stays there as opposed to what needs to happen, which is a drifting back away, 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 away from the material everything into that. Once you hit that spark, once you hit that in fairy tale terms, that would be Sleeping Beauty. So once Sleeping Beauty gets awake, once Sleeping Beauty rises from the bed and gets energized, that's a different oneness. Sleeping Beauty is a one of the fire, not of the matrix water.
And what you believe about the about the DMT, which is like the interconnection between us and the simulation?
Yeah, there becomes this challenge because, like I say, this divine in all these ancient texts that you read or in mythology, there's always there's happening where something is put to sleep, right? And it's usually presented as female, Sleeping Beauty, or in various myths, there's a female deity that goes to sleep. Or there's a deity like Narcissus in the Greek myths who becomes mesmerized by their image in the water. There becomes this idea of sleep or what's what I'm looking for? Misidentification of who they really are. They think he he forgets he's Narcissus on the shore and begins to believe he's the image in the water. So that's what starts to happen is our power source goes almost completely to sleep. The projected image comes up and is taking just enough power to keep everything running. And then, like you say, that power is known as loosh by Robert Monroe and his books and his teachings, which gets
Yeah, yeah.
eaten by the matrix, and the thing just gets recycled, and it requires Sleeping Beauty to stay asleep. That's the whole thing that has to happen here. If Sleeping Beauty stays asleep, the matrix game continues. We, as in our deepest self, just keeps going through this wheel again and again and again and again and again. But if Sleeping Beauty ever gets up and starts to say, I'm not any of that, now Sleeping Beauty can begin to borrow this thing for what it needs to return home. So I can say now the howdy thing still does a lot of howdy things it's always done before. But there are certain times when I get a sense, ah, the divine spark, Sleeping Beauty is borrowing me right now. Sleeping Beauty needs something from me in the material world, so I'll go do that, but it's not for me. I'm doing it for her. So true spirituality becomes one of the most selfless things imaginable because actually you're not doing it to better yourself. You're doing it to better yourself.
Uh, there are others, apart the Gnostics and the Cathars, which, in your opinion, they understood
Yeah.
how this realm is working, and there is someone else.
Mhm. Sure. Like you'll find it in, you'll find these ideas in every tradition in the world at their core. If you look at Zen, if you look at forms of Buddhism, of Dzogchen, of Taoism, of Advaita, of Greek mythology, ancient Egypt, the Maya, um, native myth, it's all there at their core. The problem has become is as they've gone forward in time, the message starts to get changed. The message gets distorted. They start
Uh-huh.
to become an organization. They start to become a religion of rules and rulers and subjects and masters and students. And all of these rules start to come into place of you're allowed to do this, but you can't do this. But at the core, it was very simple. One of the main cores of whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Advaita, anything. The idea of emptiness. The idea that what is at the true core of what we are is a combination of nothing and everything. The everything side is nice. That feels good. People like that side. So they work on that side. They like to talk about that side. Unity, connectedness. But it's also nothing, no thing. And that's the side that tends to make people, the average person, uncomfortable, and so they choose not to go there. A few will go into it so far that they forget that it's also everything. So everything, if you're going to get out of duality, which is a two-sided balance, you have to go into the work in a two-sectioned form. And that was certainly my mistake for 20 years is I got both realizations about 20 years ago. I got the nothing side, and I got the matrix side. I got both of it. But I figured, well, only one of them can be true. They're opposites. How could both of these things be true? And I spent 10 years and a lot of being very, very sick because I was trying to figure out which one is true. And once I finally said, oh shit, they're both true. Right. Both opposites are actually true. Ah, now I can kind of sink into a place of like calmness and actually begin to understand where we are.
Normally, people believe that is enough to don't follow the tunnel of light after that. But you are developing another system of philosophy in which you most mention the emptiness and also to don't fall in the illusion of the self. You mentioned the baptism of the Cathars, the body of light, and the baptism of fire. Can you explain this a bit better?
Sure. Um, yeah, that I mean, let's say over the last 10 years, this idea that the white light of death that is experienced at death is like the thing that begins the reincarnation cycle. So that's begun to be discussed quite openly. So the normal presentation becomes, well, when you die, just don't go to the white light. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. The problem is if you die and you get to the white light, it's probably too late.
It's too late.
The work of ending the reincarnation cycle has to happen like right now, like this moment today. It's not for something to happen later on. It's a moment that you want to have happen in the course of your life. So what that becomes is there are in the Christian tradition anyway, there is a main tradition of baptism known as the water baptism, right? Being baptized in water.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Cathars rejected that. The Cathars said that the baptism of water was false and that only that was by John, but the only baptism that could be truthful would be a baptism by Christ, which would be by fire. And if you think about it in these terms, anyone who has seen movies, especially The Matrix, this reality is always symbolized by water.
The water.
This reality and we are always considered we're beings of water, we're made of water, water functions everything. It's the
Also,
way
there is an
we get yeah,
international language
yeah,
about how we are trapped in the water.
right. But if what we truly are was this celestial fire, then actually what we want is not to be baptized in water, which means to enter the matrix deeper. We want to be baptized in the fire, which is to go out of the matrix back into what we are. So here's an interesting little because you I've only given him a few chapters of the book because of the timing, so he didn't get a chance to read this part. So this is my chance to give him his shock for the day. How about this story of Jesus, the story of him walking on water? What if that's not a metaphor to describe how he is some sort of divine special being? What if that metaphor is to say Jesus could walk on water and not sink into it, meaning water, the matrix, he is at a certain level of, we'll call it totality, where the matrix can't fool him. He can't sink into the water. He stays completely in the fire. So it's always on top of it, is always because fire can't sink. Fire, especially if you have a platform, it'll burn on the water. What if that's the message? The message is the reason he was so spectacular and so special because he was one of the beings who did not sink into this projected hologram. Now you have a very interesting metaphor.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
When it finally came to me,
So,
actually, my
how,
friend, it was like, how did I not realize this like
yeah,
30 years ago when I was reading,
very, very interesting this.
yeah,
So you believe that our original sin is to have been entering the duality,
right. We can also call that the original trauma.
original
That
trauma.
the
And we
the
are
thing,
trying to
yeah,
heal this trauma
right.
life by
Right, right. So all the traumas we get in our life, and okay, I've had some traumas in my life, but I know there's lots of people watching. Your traumas have been worse than mine. I want to make sure I fully, as hard as mine were, I know many others are just been horrific experiences. But even all of those experiences is still just a minor fraction of the great original trauma that happened when we left a place of what the Gnostics called the pleroma, a
the
place of
pleroma.
totality, a place of absolute, a place of sort of a sort of a calmness, right? And we entered into the matrix where we entered into pain, suffering, duality. And that first shift, that's the trauma. That's the initial pain that's at the core of our being. So all of these traumas are really can be used to heal the one trauma we really have to heal, which is the one of how we came in here in the first place. And that's another reason why there's such empathy for everyone, because everybody here who's truly human with a divine spark, for example, or dog with a divine spark or cat with a divine spark, we all went through that same original trauma. It's all we're equal in having this deep pain at our core. So how could I feel more special to someone else or better than someone else or more advanced than someone else when we share the exact same core trauma? And that's the original sin. It has nothing to do with an apple and eating fruit. It has to do with leaving totality and entering duality.
But you also don't believe that all us are the same, have the same origin from the pleroma. You believe that most of people are like NPC?
Yeah, again, like I don't like the term non-player character and like an extra in a movie or just a filler in a video game, because it's not really like that. So
It's a
I
bit more.
call,
It's a bit
but the
more.
idea, yeah, I've come to call them like automatic humans or humans that operate in an automatic way. There's
Huh?
no the message comes to a person if they have a divine spark, and the more awake that divine spark is, the more likely they can go, is this a good idea? Should I really do that? Should I really say that? Should I, the more automatic one is, they just there's no even thought. It just continues. And I think that's been revealed in the last 5 years. The last 5 years of the incredible conformity worldwide,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
people did things that just logically make absolutely no sense, but the majority went and did them anyway. That's a really good example of like, holy cow, like there really are a lot of people here whose job really is just to fill the reality and make it seem it's bigger than it really is, creating more stories.
To make it seems normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I
They
used
make
the
it seems
example in my
this
book
reality
of the
normal, like
television.
it is like it should be, and yeah, okay, something should be fixed, but this is the reality. This is what we have. They don't have the deep guide
Right.
to
I use
understand that
the
something really weird is going on here.
Yeah, I've used the example in the second chapter of my book of a television show called The Good Place. For anyone who hasn't seen it, you can probably find it somewhere, multiple languages. It was on NBC, I think around like 2016, 2017 for 4 years. You would only need to see the first season. The first season is the only season that, in a sense, tells you what's going on, which is four people who have recently died supposedly go to a heaven that's been built as this wonderful, perfect city for them. But as they go along, they start to realize that they're the only four humans there, and everyone else is actually, in this case, a demonic being screwing with them and creating problems and suffering and discord for them. Now, in our reality, I wouldn't say these what are being called NPCs are demons. But they're the same. They're there to populate our reality and create certain stories and certain narratives that the overall script of this place wants to have done. And if we're not aware, we don't have awareness, true awareness, which is the number one. Getting your house in order is number one. Learning how to have awareness of what's going on here all the time starts to allow this thing to not automatically follow the stories that are being presented in front of you. Without that, they're going to lead you into just another story, another story, another story, and then 5 years go by and you wonder, how did I get here? Well, you got here because you were following these scripts that had nothing to do with you.
You wrote that energy is matrix and emptiness it's freedom. It's like this.
Um, how I would describe it is emptiness, which is, yeah, the realization of emptiness is the doorway to home or the doorway to your liberation. It's not actually liberation yet. It's still in the matrix, but it's like if that's the door
Yeah, yeah.
that puts you out of the matrix, it's
The
like
direction.
yeah, it's the emptiness that's right there. And and there seems to be a timeline that just because the realization of emptiness happens, which in my case, how it happened here, right in the death experience that I had when I fell in the river 20 years ago, actually, this year, it was the realization that yes, not just reality is false, is an illusion, but so am I. I too am, there's nothing at my core as a physical being all of it is a type of projection. All my thoughts, all my feelings, all my memories, all my hopes, all my fears, all my dreams, all of it. But yet there was a witnessing, clear awareness that was always present. And I realized it had always been present and realized, oh, that is maybe not exactly what I am, but it's like the one step away from what I really am. And all this other stuff has been this have been these things that the awareness has allowed itself to pretend to be tricked into believing. Um, but having that happen, and I've had a lot of people over the years now share their own experiences when it's happened. It's not an easy thing. It's on the surface, it sounds great, and it sounds very freeing to kind of realize, oh, you're actually not all this stuff that's going on. It's presented as a very, and it is, but it's also quite terrifying because the egoic self does not want to hear this, and it will rebel very strongly to pull you back in, and there becomes a long process for people to integrate it. And now, at least, there's quite a number of books that are starting to be written on it. There's a lot of people that have talked about it, but like when it happened to me, there was almost nothing written about it, for example, and I had no idea what was going on. The Korean monk I had been with had just died. And so I was in a difficult place for a lot of years because I didn't fully understand what had just happened. The more I began to understand it, the easier it got to work with. But it's yeah, you're not home, but it's like you can see it just over the ridge. It's like you can it's at there it is. It's just
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm really close. Yeah.
So do you believe this is your final reincarnation? And
I won't be back here, no. And I don't mean that in the sense of like a wish, because that's one of the
must be a
things
decision, must be
it
a core decision.
yeah, it's not even that. It's because that unfortunately is how, if you go and Google search exiting the matrix as an example, and you go start reading some of that, it's usually going to involve things like mm, living in the forest, eating a natural diet, getting rid of your smartphone, uh, but especially things like having a strong intention and setting your goals, or in a sense, it's like if you wish hard enough, the sort of law of attraction, right? If you wish hard enough to end the reincarnation cycle, then you'll be able to do it. Well, everyone who's tried this affirmation stuff has learned it doesn't really work. It works a little bit, but not really. So you don't want to if your true intention becomes, and it shouldn't be, I want to end the reincarnation cycle. It should be, I want to know the true home, or I want to know what I truly am, or I want to know the totality of everything. That at least is a direction to go, and it's not wishful. It's then saying, I'm not wishing for it to happen. I'm saying that's what I truly want at the core of my being. And then the question becomes, so what do I do to make that happen? That tends to be the step that gets missed. This idea then, yes, the intention is step one, but everyone seems to forget you have to do something. If you want to have a new car, you can wish to have a new car, but you've still got to have the money in your bank account. You've got to go to the dealership. You've got to buy the car. You've got to drive it home, and you've got to start using it. They miss all those steps. They just wish for the new car and look
Yeah, yeah.
outside their front door. Why don't I have a new car? Well, you haven't gone to the dealership and you haven't
So
bought
what
it.
is
You haven't
needed to
driven
do?
it home.
What is needed to do?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Like,
You set the intention to leave the matrix, and then what you need to do?
yeah, it's the best term for it is called self-definition. It is to truly and honestly define what you are totally and completely. It starts with defining this thing first, figuring out just the thing I see every day in the mirror. What is it? How does it function? How does it think? How does it feel? What does it want? What does it like? What doesn't it like? Because you'll be when I first did that, I thought I knew this part of myself really well. I didn't know anything. I had no idea why I was doing anything at all. I really didn't know my past. So that includes things like the recapitulation, a life review, to go through your entire life piece by piece by piece to know what's really happened. It includes working with breaking all of your patterns. It involves with, in a sense, being a completely different person in the reality to find out who and what you are. But the deepest part of self-definition is to realize comes at a moment for a lot of people when they've been studying their thoughts, and then when they start to say, I am watching my thoughts. But I've always defined myself as the thought, but wait a minute, I am watching it. So I can't be the thought. I am something else other than thought. I can watch feelings. I can watch emotions. I can watch experiences. I can watch sensations. So I must not be any of them. So a second process then begins of, well, then who or what is this thing that is aware of everything else? That is true self-definition. And in a sense, when that is revealed as a type of explosive moment, um, yeah, then because that's the door, that's emptiness, and that is beginning the movement away. So really, it's a whole lot of other practices that are the right things for you personally to get to the point where you can say, ah, I actually know what I am. Like, not as an idea, not as I think or a wish. I'm pretty sure a book says I'm this, and I guess I agree with it. I mean, like, literally to say, I know exactly what I am. Wow. That's the way out.
Do you believe there are many more metrics like this, or this is the one?
This reality I feel is huge. Um, I've had experiences as my own parallel self, right? I've seen myself die in other realities. I've seen who I married in those other realities. I saw what kind of lives I had. So I know there's been millions of just of this thing, having millions of different lives. And what's been interesting for me was all of the lives that I've witnessed to this point are were all quite logical. Like in none of them was I like, the King of Sweden or something impossible to really. I mean, they were all logical things that could have easily happened in the lives. The people I married in many cases were I knew, yeah, I knew this person. I met her when I was 26. Oh, okay. I could see how that could have happened if I had actually asked her out and you know. So those it makes sense if a being for whatever reason is producing us these things for experiences. Like that's one of the spiritual things that they claim, right? This godlike being has built us because it wants to experience.
Uh-huh.
Well, that would be kind of a dumb idea to just give one body, one life, one whatever. You're really limited in experiences. But if you could have a million different matrices, a million different me's having a million different lives of experiences, you pretty much have everything. And then if you have matrices of different times and different types of things and completely different totality of how things run, then that's just material realms. Then you've got etheric realms and you've got astral realms and you've got angelic realms and you've got hell realms and you've got heavenic realms. It is massive. Plato's cave is endless. You can explore it and see it for an endless amount of time. And that's one of the traps. One of the traps is there's always something new to explore. There's always something really cool to find out and check on. Eventually, there has to come a time when someone says, I'm tired of false. I'm tired of delusion. I'm tired of anything that's not true. All I want is truth, and false can just, I'm done with it all. And at that moment, you get rid of everything to just the one thing that's not false.
Do you believe that the human experience is the most terrible one in the Matrix?
Sure. just look now, how many kids are being raped like today? How many people are getting their legs blown off in a war? How many people's spouses are beating them up? How many people are in poverty and in not eating? And I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
the, the number of people who are really having like a good day today, like an enjoyable day, is actually pretty rare. Almost everybody is in one way or another going through some kind of even psychological or emotional problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My boss is yelling at me, he wants this done. Oh, my wife doesn't like this. She didn't like how I did this. Oh, my kids aren't home yet. Everybody is almost nobody's going through a really good day. And the point being is, if this was made by a God of love, a God who cared about the creatures, that could have been created. He's supposed to be omnipotent. He could create anything he wanted. So why not create a realm where other creatures don't have to eat each other just to survive and live another day, where creatures could be in constant harmony and constant enjoyment with each other? That could have been made, but it wasn't. So the fact that it wasn't indicates this is what was made. This is what was wanted to be made. So we have to change our reasons and our understandings as to what this place is then.
I agree absolutely. But the Archons are having a more miserable life than us.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. I mean, in some cases, animals have a bit of freedom. They don't have to worry about money systems and banks and governments and, so they get a bit of time to themselves. On the other hand, they're in constant anxiety because they're either wondering what's going to eat me now, what's
Ah,
looking to get me now, or I'm hungry, what can I go find to eat? So, in that respect, animals have a challenging existence, yet at the same time, at their core, they can be very, very gentle. Even animals in the wild. If you go into the
no, but I
wild,
was
because
saying the Archons,
yeah, oh, the archons.
the Archons, not the animals. I
Oh,
mean that
sorry.
the Archons have a more miserable life than us, or not?
Well, they don't really have a life. Think of the archons, and that's a word I'm sure most of you know, but it's a word used by Gnostics to describe the first things created by the creator demiurge, which are sort of like functioning creative tools.
Mm-hmm.
So think of them as the Matrix's computer programmers. That's
Yeah,
really what they are. And they are basically given a message by the demiurge, make this happen, make this code, and they're just spending all their time coding and then looking for where's there a problem in the code? I got to go fix it. I got to do this. Oh, I'm not getting enough loosh here. The power's low. So they're literally not alive. They're literally just constantly scanning the creation for
uh-huh.
problems
I
that
also have
are,
this.
yeah,
I also have this system in my mind. I also
yeah,
got to this kind of system. It is like a artificial intelligence
yeah.
system, and they are like uh, how to say in English this word, like employees,
What's the word in Italian?
employees
Okay, yeah. Hmm.
of the matrix. They have to
Yeah,
run it on.
yeah. And they know that if the matrix ends, they end because they only exist if the matrix
Uh-huh,
exists.
uh-huh.
So it goes down the chain. Like someone could say, well, why are the people who run the beings, people who are in charge of all this stuff, why do they do all this nasty stuff? Well, they're literally connected to that level, back to the level of this AI Archon, and they know if the matrix ended tomorrow, divine sparks would just leave. The matrix has no power anymore. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the plug's been pulled. But
yeah,
they
yeah.
know if the plug gets pulled, it's over, they end. So it's actually, like you say, a very sad existence because they have to keep a realm of suffering and pain going just so that they continue. Um, it and of course, like you said, their AI is the best way of describing them. What
Yeah.
we are seeing happening in our reality now is literally just a minor packaged presentation of the entire bigger picture of which this realm, this material world is just a tiny piece. But it's again, it's revealing more and more and more because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we're getting close to the end of it. We're getting very, very close to the end of this. So it's harder and harder for them to hide what's really going on if anybody wants to just look. That's all you have to do is look. Just be honest. Just look
I
at it.
absolutely agree on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And what you think now is will be? Many people think we are in apocalypse times. We are on the end of this era. We are on the end of the Kali Yuga. Something where it is happening. They want to switch this society into a completely artificial one. They want to make a fusion of the human and intelligence, artificial intelligence, robotics. What will be, in your opinion? Because if they really
yeah,
do this, you will not have to, we will not be able to escape anymore.
unfortunately, that's what's coming. Yes. This simulation or simulacra or reality, whatever you want to call it, this one is ending. It's not generating enough power anymore. We talked about the system needs power, but the system is constantly growing. The computer, it's not a static program. The
But
program keeps building, it keeps getting bigger and bigger, so it needs more and more power. And what's happened is this reality that we have lived in, this experience, is not giving them enough power. In my theory, what they then realize they have to do is so here's the machine, here's the beings in the machine that they're getting the power from. There's a space there. And like anyone in science knows, if you're pulling energy from one place to another, you lose some on the space because it just. So what they realize, if I just put the being and the machine together, there's no power loss. They don't need to make more beings. They just need to put the beings and the machine directly together so the energy won't be lost that way. That's what's going on. They're calling it, of course, the spiritual world calls it, we're heading to a 5D. We're going into the ascension. We're going into this new realm, which is true. Except when you realize D means depth, down. We're not going higher, we're going deeper. We're going to be going deeper into the matrix in which literally you're fused into the AI. And once you're fused in the AI, it's going to be unbelievably difficult to get out of this place. It can still
I
happen, but
also,
boy, yeah,
I
it's
agree on this.
going to be hard. But at the switch point, which we're getting close to, where this one, the one we know, is going to get turned off, and this one's going to get turned on, there's a space. And in that space, the power of this reality has got to get turned down really, really low. It won't be off, but it's going to get turned down really, really low, which means that thing that's keeping the true you asleep has this moment of time, which we're almost at, where if the focus can be clear, if the awareness can be clear to that and only that, it can wake up and it can very quickly have, because there's nothing holding it, to just go. So bizarrely, even though we are at a place of extreme chaos, extreme difficulty, extreme confusion coming, and extreme insanity, we're also at an unbelievable opportunity because if if you're doing the work and you have really set into what you're going to do when that power goes down, the chance of going, it's better than it's been for maybe thousands of years. But if you miss the point and sink into the next matrix, oh boy. Now that doesn't mean this one's going to end though. This matrix will literally stop at a certain point and go all the way back to the start, and then the time loop will start again. So when I talked about
Like the Vedic says about the Brahman.
right, right. So someone might say, "Oh, we're going into a golden age again. We're going to the golden age." Yeah, okay. It just means you're going back a number, however many 20,000 years, and you're going to live the whole thing again. Yeah, you'll live some nice golden age and some crappy age, and then you're back in this shit again, and then you'll be back at this exact same point where maybe you'll have a chance to get out. Don't go into the next one, but if you got to go back and do the whole damn thing again. So it's like, here's your chance to just say, done. I'm done with the whole insanity. And and that comes by just starting to say, okay, I'm done with this, but who is the thing that's been having this experience? Who is really the thing that's here? where does it come from? Because I think almost everybody on one level feels I don't really belong on Earth. Earth is not home somehow. They then try to, oh, I come from this other planet or this other place, or they try to, there's always a way to make you stay focused in the matrix, as opposed to saying, oh, those are all just matrix ideas too. They're all just, that's another fake place, that's another fake place. How about I find out what real home is? Let me just, that's, if I find real home, I think there's a great opportunity that it could happen.
Thank you, Howdy.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate that you previous book on your telecast here, and because some people do talk about my things, but they often don't mention who I am and talk about the book. And you did that. You were very the word in English is very humble about it. And so because you were very open and honest and when you asked me and I said, yeah, of course, I would be happy to come on and share and talk to you because
Uh,
of how you're going
because I
about what
believe
you're doing.
that this kind of knowledge must be shared everywhere, and all kind of people of us have to have as much as opportunities to learn, understand, make their reflections, and I
Yeah.
think this is the way to do this.
Well, again, thank you for having me. If I'm ever going to be in Italy, I'll let you know. It'd be great to meet up and have a coffee somewhere together
Sure,
and meet and discuss. So thank you again
sure.
for having me.
Thank you so much. E grazie a tutti per quelli che ci hanno seguito. Bye bye Audi, thank you. Ciao a tutti.